Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Mordian Glory video. Today will be a sort of double bill episode for I will reveal the sort of rumours, inside information on potentially how conscripts are going to be nerfed. Now bear in mind, as of this video, Games Workshop has said they're going to release the official nerf tomorrow. So this is to be taken with a pinch of salt. I have heard this from someone who is friends with one of the playtesters, I believe. So this is third-hand knowledge, shall we say. So take it with a pinch of salt. I think what would be most interesting in this case is I'll tell you what he has told me. And then tomorrow we'll see if he was right or if he was wrong and he was just completely bullshitting me. So that's the first part. So we'll go over that relatively quickly. And the second part will be covering the Catachan Regimental focus. So lots and lots of exciting things. I kind of went over the Catachan Regimental focus a little bit yesterday when comparing it to the Mordian one. And I said how I thought the Catachan was the best so far. We've also seen the Vostroyan Regimental focus now. So for 3 regiments revealed so far, which is good. And I would still say that the Catachan one is the best. Now, let me just find these potential nerfs just now. I'm almost there. Okay, 1 second. Just trying to get the official list here. Okay, so it is. So here we go. So according to the inside source, conscripts will still be affected by commissars. That is not being taken away. They will still work as normal. So that is potentially a big sigh of relief let loose by a lot of guard commanders there. So number 1, he says conscripts will still be affected by commissars. However, the 2 nerfs come from this. Number 1, the max squad capacity is going to be reduced from 50 to 30 to bring it more in line with other blob squads out there, because I don't believe there's any other sort of blob unit like Hormagaunts or Orcs, for example, that can get more than 30 guys in a unit. So now conscripts, which you obviously can get 50 at the moment, they're being brought in line and they're only getting 30 each, and that sets a standard across the board, which is horde units / chaff units. They're going to be 30 men max. I'm a little sad about this, if this is true. Number 1, only one reason is it was kind of unique. It was a unique trait, and I do kind of feel that whilst we are getting these regimental traits and stuff, I do feel like the Guard are losing a lot of their identity. I mean, everyone's getting chap tactics and forge wheel tactics now, so getting regimental tactics doesn't really make us a unique faction anymore. We've lost platoons. I mean, I'm not complaining about regimental tactics, but you see what I mean? Like, everyone's getting similar shit. We're getting our own unique stratagems. We're getting our own, every faction's getting their own stratagems. Every faction's getting their own, basically chapter tactics. And so we've lost platoons, which gave us unique flavour. And now we're losing the fact that we had the sort of the biggest squads. We can't boast that we can field the biggest squads in the game anymore, which is sad. It is legitimately sad. But as a player that has extensively play-tested conscripts and has found 30 to be the ideal amount, I can't say I'm overly bothered by this. Occasionally I did like to run squads of 40 though, so it is a bit of a problem. But generally speaking, you guys have watched my battle reports. I generally run 2 to 3 blobs of conscripts, 30 men in each, and I'll probably continue to do that. So this doesn't really impact me. And again, this is only something I've heard from someone who's heard it from someone else. So this is third-hand knowledge. This may not even be true. This guy could be completely bullshitting me, but there you go. So that's the first rumoured nerf that I have my hands on. And the second one is conscripts can still can still receive orders, but they only pass an order on a 4+. So there's no more guaranteed first rank fire, second rank fire on your conscripts. You've got a 50-50 chance of getting that order off on your conscripts. This is to represent their lack of training and lack of discipline, supposedly. And the point of this is meant to represent that whilst a fully trained guardsman and fully sort of, pretty experienced guardsman will jump at, will react to his commander's orders pretty much every time. He'll be able to. He's skilled and drilled and combat experienced. A conscript, on the other hand, is fresh out of boot and or just conscripted off the street, but normally fresh out of boot camp. And he hasn't got used to following orders in a combat situation, so he might panic and may not carry the order out properly, or maybe the order has been given but they've just failed to implement it in a timely manner. That's what it's meant to represent. So I feel like that's if they are the nerfs, bear in mind, this is, again, I can't stress enough, this is just what I've got third-hand knowledge. It could not be, it might be completely bollocks. We might find out tomorrow that commissars don't affect conscripts. They can't accept orders, and they can only be taken in 20 to 30 man blobs, and they're just basically completely useless. We may find that out tomorrow. We might do. If that's the case, I'll be upset, but whatever. So no, what we have here is, I would say, a reasonable set of nerfs. A reasonable set of them. If this is what happens, then I will probably be relatively happy. And I think it would be a good balance. I think a lot of people will still complain about conscripts and stuff, but I think the complaints will quickly melt away in the face, or the internet will find a new thing to complain about in the form of our Lehman Russes. So that's why I suspect that once the Guard Codex drops and everyone starts using double firing Lehman Russes, that conscripts are going to be very quickly become yesterday's thing to bitch about. So, they're the nerfs that I have my hands on. 4+ for orders, and only able to take 30-man squads. Not disappointing. I wouldn't be overly against those being implemented. As you guys have noticed now, I very rarely put orders on my conscripts these days anyway. In my platoons, in inverted commas, I take a veteran squad, infantry squad, and 30 conscripts. And often I don't order the conscripts. Often I instead order the infantry squad and the veteran squad. And the conscripts just get in the way and occasionally remove a wound and generally just fall back and create a bit of a wall. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, let's get on to the Catachans. So, I would say out of the 3 regiments that we have seen so far, Catachans are the strongest. And the reason they're the strongest is that their regimental trait is always in effect. Always in effect. You'll see later on, the Vostroyan one is good as well, is very good. But it's only a single improvement, whereas the Catachans is a 2-parter and the Mordians was a 2-parter, sort of. They affected vehicles and... I guess the Mordian one's a single one as well. It just makes everyone good at Overwatch, doesn't it? The Catachan one is it's sort of a 2-parter, and I'd say it's very, very powerful. Very, very universal. I would say it's not situational at all. But anyway, let's bigging it up. Let's get into it. The Catachan regimental trait is brutal strength. In the deadly jungles of Catachan, only the strongest survive. The sons and daughters of this death world are ferocious warriors, taller and more powerful than typical humans. Interesting to note, I always thought Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I know it seems like a bit of a typical of a minor thing to pick up on. That Catachans were always smaller than regular humans because of the gravity on their planet was slightly higher, and that's why they're so strong. Because the gravity, they're called sort of mini Ogrins because they're sort of short and squat. Not short, but let's say the average height in the Imperium is like 6 foot. Catachans will be like 5'8" kind of thing. But they're muscly as fuck because of this. So interesting, they've said they're taller and more powerful. Correct me if I'm wrong there in the comments. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, basically, infantry units with this doctrine add 1 to their strength characteristic. And in addition, they can add 1 to their leadership characteristic if they are within 6 inches of a friendly Catachan officer. Each time a vehicle with this doctrine fires a ranged weapon that makes a random number of attacks, e.g. heavy d6, heavy 2d6, you can reroll one of the dice used to determine the number of attacks made. Right, let's go through this bit by bit. Number 1, infantry units with this doctrine add +1 to their strength. That is amazing. And I'll tell you why it's amazing, because it's always in play. That is good on the attack, it's good on the defense. If you are defending and you get charged by a unit of Space Marines, you being able, or anything that's toughness 4, or, well, anytime you're in combat really, but it means that, it just means you're always going to be wounding much better. And also, crazy times, if you get your Catachans into combat with a sort of Rhino chassis vehicle, anything that's toughness 7, toughness 6 or 7, you're going to be wounding out on 5s now because you're strength 4. So Catachans are very good at close combat. I honestly think Catachans are a very good assault army now because that equals strength 8 power fists, wounding Marines on 2s. That equals strength 5 power axes, wounding Marines on 3s. The list goes on and on. It means you're able to it means you're able to go toe to toe with Marines in combat, which is great. Don't forget this applies to conscripts. So all you people that have been wanting to take assault-based conscript armies, boom, throw in some Catachan conscripts there. Run them forward, get Strachan in there, get a priest in there, get someone that gives you rerolls in there, and what you're looking at is units of conscripts with +2 attack, so that's 3 attacks each, plus the strength 4, plus the rerolling some hits, if you get them to reroll 1s, and you're starting to look at a stack, build upon build upon build. You're starting to look at very decent assault troops. It actually makes Catachans really, really good. So the +1 strength is just great across the board. The plus and the next thing I love is the +1 leadership when they're near officers. That is very fluffy and very, very good. And the reason I think that is very important for the Catachans is basically it starts to reduce their reliance. Well, it's very fluffy. Sorry, I'd say I like it because it's fluffy. Number 1, because Catachans have always had this sort of fluff, this story behind them where their officers are gung-ho, they lead from the front, they're always in the thick of it with their men. So if your officers are within 6 inches of your infantry, it's kind of representing them, saying, go on lads, get stuck in there, give them some Catachan steel, up and at them, fucking have them lads, burn them now, do this, do that. Or if they're starting to take a beating, what are you thinking of running away, you fucking maggots? Get back in there, you hold the line, you bloody Catachans, you're not Ponzi Cadens, you're not Ponzi Mordians, you're bloody Catachans, get in there. So it kind of represents that that will make Catachan Guardsmen, for example, the same leadership 8, which means they're the same leadership as if they're under a commissar. So when your officers are near your regular infantry, they are as good at boosting their leadership as a commissar. Now, obviously, a commissar will blow the brains out and stop them from losing additional guys. Of course. But if you are this is what's the second thing I was going to say is if you're playing Catachans to the fluff, you shouldn't be using any commissars. Catachans and commissars do not mix. You shouldn't have any in your army. So if you're playing a fluffy Catachan army with no commissars, probably not going to be running any conscripts in that case, because you don't really have conscripts on Catachan, to be fair. But you're probably not going to have any conscripts. which means your infantry are all going to be leadership 8 when sticking near the officers. Now, also, if you add a command squad and take a flag, that's another +1 leadership. You're looking at leadership 10. That's leadership 9 infantry. That's very, very good. And that goes a long way to, if you're playing as a fluffy Catachan player, that goes a long way to mitigating your losses to battle shock if you're not running commissars. Mordian, I should also mention, Mordians kind of get the same thing as well. We get +1 leadership when being all nicely ranked up, because it represents us we're shoulder to shoulder, nicely ranked up. And we also get +1 leadership if we're near a banner as well. So Mordians, if you don't want to give them commissars, can have leadership 9 as well. And it's kind of, I know we're talking about Catachans here, but it kind of is sort of fluffy for the Mordians as well, because there actually typically isn't a lot of commissars in Mordian regiments, which a lot of people you'll probably find surprising, because Mordians have got such a hard-on for discipline. But what actually tends to happen is Mordians have got such a hard-on for discipline that very few of them tend to run away. And what that generally means is the commissars find it very, very boring. And Mordians generally don't need commissars to keep them in line, because according to the fluff, they never retreat unless given the order. And so the commissar never has any real need to execute someone. So it's kind of good, but it's kind of cool how this regiment gets +1 leadership if they're near the officers, because the officers are bombastic leading from the front. Mordians get +1 leadership through sheer discipline. Just, we are ranked up, we are side by side, we are in battle formation, we are in parade drill formation, we get +1 leadership. We don't need anyone to tell us to be braver, we just are that disciplined. We could potentially be disciplined leadership 9 better than a space marine. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, less about Mordians. I have actually played a preliminary battle using the Mordian traits. My opponent's very gracious and let me use it before the codex came out, and I will be putting an after-action battle report on that. And I'll talk to you how I have revised my initial feelings on the Mordian traits, and I think they're great. Anyway, slight tangent, but I wanted to mention those Mordian things. So back to the Catachans. So +1 strength is great, +1 leadership is great. I've already said in my Mordian review how good the vehicle getting to reroll one of the dice for the random number of attacks is. That is absolutely insane. We've already talked about that. That looks at hellhounds, basically Catachan hellhounds. You don't have to take the Forge World ones anymore to get the you sort of get a pseudo Forge World Hellhound is what I'm saying. Because the Forge World, the Artemis pattern, you roll 2d6 and pick the highest. With the Catachan one, you roll 1 dice, and if it's rubbish, you can re-roll it. But if you get an even worse, if you get a 2 on the first dice and then re-roll it and get a 1, you've got to stick with it. Whereas with the Forge World one, if you rolled a 1 and a 2, you'd get to fire 2 shots. So it's kind of like it's like an Artemis light hellhound, basically. But it's great for, we've already talked about Catachan Lehman Russ battle tanks are going to be absolutely amazing now. Getting to reroll the number of shots for 3B on your battle cannons is fantastic. Basically that removes the temptation to ever use that command point for re-rolling the number of shots from your battle cannon. Remember I did that episode, guys, about how you should try and, tips and tricks for 8th edition. Try and use your command re-roll in the shooting phase for the amount of damage dealt, not for the number of shots, and not see if you hit or wound. Thanks to the Catachan trait now, you don't need that temptation will never be there. You just re-roll the number of shots you get just for being Catachan. So Catachan Hellhound Brigades, Catachan Flamers, Catachan Demolishers, Catachan battle tanks, they're all going to be great. I actually see a Catachan Demolisher with 3 heavy flamers on it being very, very powerful, because, read this, each time a vehicle with this doctrine fires a ranged weapon that makes a random number of attacks, e.g. heavy d6, you can reroll one of the dice used to determine the number of attacks. So, You fire a ranged weapon, a heavy flamer. That's D6, basically D6 with the reroll. Each of those heavy flamers get D6 with the reroll. And then, if you've got a battle cannon on top, if you stay still or move under half inches, the new grinding advance rule kicks in, which means you would get to fire battle cannon once. Oh, reroll the number of shots, fire it again, reroll the number of shots. So, what we're looking at on a Catachan Fireball Lehman Russ battle tank is 3 heavy flamers, each one getting to re-roll the number of shots, number of hits that they do. Yep. And the battle tank, each one of theirs. So you're getting 5d6 attacks. Each one of those d6 as a re-roll. That's really powerful. If you are an armoured commander, you're probably going to want to look into playing Catachans. I know it sounds, if you're an AdMech player, and you love having some Imperial Guard allies, even though it seems a bit weird, you should use Catachan ones. Because it would kind of, you've got +1 strength and leadership, so it shows you've sort of cybernetically upgraded the guardsmen, and the tanks are firing better with a lot of their weapons to show improved AdMech weaponry. So if you took some, like Cadians, and then AdMeched them up to buggery, and then added them to your AdMech force, you've got a really fluffy force that is very, very powerful and fits to the fluff. So the Catachan, the reason I've mentioned that is the Catachan Doctrine is very versatile. Very, very versatile. So the reason the Catachan one is so powerful in comparison to what we've seen for the Mordians is because, unlike the Mordian ones, it is not situational. And I'm going to move on a second. I know I've spent a lot talking about one paragraph, but I'm trying to impress upon you guys how powerful this stratagem is. It's amazing. Okay. The +1 strength is always in effect. So, as we've said, unlike the Mordian one, which relies on you getting charged, relies on your opponent's decision before it goes off. Unlike that, the Catachan one is always in effect. You charging, you choosing to go into combat, you get your +1 strength. You being on the defensive, you get your +1 strength. It's really, really good. So the +1 strength is amazing. And the vehicle one, again, unlike the Mordian one, when the Mordian one is benefits Overwatch, again, that relies on your opponent getting to your tanks. And as we have discussed in the past, if your opponent has managed to make it into combat with your vehicles, something has gone wrong. And having great Overwatch most of the time isn't really going to help you all that much. So, that's why the Mordian one is situational. The Mordian one relies on a very specific situation, you getting charged. The Catachan one doesn't matter. You can charge, you can be charged, you get the strength, and the vehicles you can shoot, you can Overwatch, it doesn't matter, you're always going to get that reroll. So that's why the Catachan one is so powerful. Okay. Now the article goes on to talk about death strikes, blah 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 blah. Death strikes just not that bothered about death strikes. The one thing is we get another stratagem reveal, Vortex missile. Use the stratagem before you fire a death strike missile. You can reroll failed hit rolls for this shot. In addition, add 1 to the roll made to determine whether other units within 6 inches are hit. If a model is wounded but not slain by the attack, roll another dice on a 6 model suffers a further d6 mortal wounds. It's okay, and death strikes are kind of okay, but they're still a bit wank, really. I mean, you get d6, you get to reroll the number of shots you get, okay, but you still got to hit on your rubbishy 4+ ballistic skill, so it's not that good. At least you get to re-roll the hits, so if at least you're hitting on a 4+ with a re-roll, that's kind of good. And then, yeah, it's very, very good. The Vortex missile makes the Death Strike a usable unit, but it's still not great, and it's 3 command points. And what you have to ask yourself really is it worth 3 command points? Probably not. But I think what this stratagem lets you do is, are you a guard player that likes to take the Death Strike missile for fluff reasons, but always feel like you're gimping yourself because you're doing it? Well, now, here's a little bone. So you still take that Death Strike, and when it goes off, if you're playing Catachan, you've got a good chance that it's actually going to do something now. So, there you go. But it's still not great. Catachan command squads, there's not a lot here. This is the next section, but it does mention that there's a unique order for the Catachans, which is called Burn Them Out. Now, it doesn't tell us what that order is. It just says, of course, if you like infantry-based Catachan armies, there's still a solid choice of the Catachan command squad being a particularly powerful option. Equip yours with a heavy flamer and 4 flamers, and you have a devastating close assault unit bolstered considerably by the unique Catachan order Burn Them Out. 2 things to mention. We now know the name of the Catachan order Burn Them Out. Giving Catachans a boost to flamers is again very fluffy, and will probably make flamers a good choice. Again, in most armies, for 7 points you can get a flamer, for 7 points you can get a plasma gun. Most people are going to take the plasma gun, so having a way of rewarding fluffy Catachan players for taking flamers is nice. It means, again, you're able to play your fluffy Catachan army with lots of hellhounds, lots of flamers, lots of infantry squads, but you're not getting punished for doing so. You're being rewarded for playing fluffy, which is great. The weird thing is it says equip your command squad with a heavy flamer and 4 flamers. Does this mean that command squads are going up to 5 people rather than 6? Rather than 4, sorry. Because they're currently 4-man, aren't they? But now this would indicate 5. Or does that mean the officer could potentially take a flamer? Can the Catachans officers uniquely take a flamer? If so, that's very interesting. Potentially a very awesome choice. Hello, I'm Lieutenant Dan and I've got my big fuck off flamer. Now the last thing they talk about is the unique Catachan stratagem. So the Catachan stratagem is vicious traps. Catachan jungle fighters lace the ground ahead of their defence with all manner of lethal devices, including snare mines, razors, sharp tripwires, and incendiary charges. Use this stratagem when an enemy unit finishes a charge move within 1 inch of a Catachan unit from your army that is wholly on or within a terrain feature. Roll a dice on a 4+, that enemy suffers D3 mortal wounds. I like that. Number 1, it's only 1 command point, and as us guard commanders know, we generally have command points to spare, so throwing 1 out here and there to have some vicious traps is not a bad thing at all. Don't forget you can use a command reroll on that, so if you haven't used a command reroll in the enemy charge phase, which you probably haven't used a command reroll in your enemy charge phase, that means you have a 4+ with a reroll to get this to go off. Now, one thing, the unit that is being charged has to be wholly within terrain. Again, that balances it out, because mortal wounds are good, but you can't have them everywhere. So making sure that the Catachans are fully in the terrain piece is a nice way of balancing it. And having it only go for 4+ is also kind of good. For example, it's kind of fluffy because some armies, like Elder, for example, would probably perceive the traps and would be able to dance and skip over them. However, D3 mortal wounds is not to be underestimated. Let me tell you, my Land Raider Crusader with its frag assault launchers has become a thorn in my opponent's side for the amount of times I've just charged it in and gone, on a 4+, you will take D3 mortal wounds. Oh, I got a 4+. Or, oh, I didn't get a 4+, use a command point. Oh, I got a 4+. Oh, guess what? I do D3 mortal wounds. Oh, I've just finished off your unit. The unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, not the model, the unit. With my frag assault launchers, I have successfully finished off a couple of Razorbacks, a Blood Angels Assault Marine squad, and a Castellan Battle Droid robot thing. So D3 mortal wounds is not to be sniffed at. Not to be sniffed at all. So yeah, I've gone on and on and on in this Catachan one, but it's absolutely an amazing set of stratagems. Obviously we spent the first 8 or so minutes talking about the potential conscript nerfs as well. But yes, Catachans are very, very, very powerful, and the stratagem is diverse enough that you can use it for a multitude of regiments that aren't Catachans. If you are a regiment from like a warrior world that specialises in close combat, if you remember the fourth edition codex, the Canuck Skull Takers, you can use Catachans. Catachans represent anything from brutal primitives all the way up to mech enhanced soldiers. With your, you can, if you have a bunch of Cadians that you've really modified and converted to go along with your AdMech or your Space Marines, and they've received, Catachans. If you have you could use Catachans, a force of Catachans, to sort of represent very, very early in training Space Marines which have sort of received some of the very basic upgrades but haven't received all of the sort of 13 precious organs, or however many there are. So you could have Catachan Guardsmen representing, these are the potential trainees for my army, and they specialise in being good at close combat, and they specialise in good leadership, and the Space Marines have upgraded some of their equipment, or they've got the best equipment that the Space Marines can offer, so their tanks are hitting better. They can be used for anything. It's a really, really diverse regimental tactic. I feel like I'm forced to use the Mordian ones, but I will definitely try out some of the other ones as well. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it has been sort of in-depth and informative. Apologies it's gone on for sort of 30 minutes. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Please, please, please tell me what you think is about the potential conscript nerfs. Again, like I said, it's third-hand information. It may be completely bollocks. But, leave some comments to see if you reckon that's viable. Have you guys heard similar things? And the second thing is, what do you think of the Catachan regimental trait? I haven't reviewed the Vostroyan one here, but in comparison to the Mordian and the Vostroyan one, what do you guys think of the Catachan trait? I personally think it's the most powerful so far. And I would say, actually, interestingly, I'd probably say that the Mordian one and the Vostroyan one are kind of equal. I'd say the Vostroyan, this is a sort of a sneak peek for next episode. The Vostroyan regimental trait is better than the Mordian one, but the Mordian unique order is miles better than the Vostroyan one. So it's kind of like your unique trait as Mordians isn't that good, but your order is much, much better than the Vostroyan one. And we don't really know what the Catachan one is yet. So there you go. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave lots and lots of comments, and I'll see you guys next time.